played such a versatile group of characters on the show. People
Mm,
don't realize that.
mm.
How did you prepare for the various roles? What was it about? How did you go about it? Like, which one originally, do you remember which one you were cast for originally? And then they just kept bringing you back? Or do you remember how that process was?
Yeah, I remember it very well because I was an actor in Vancouver, and here this show came in called X-Files, and it sounded interesting, and I wanted to get on that show, and I started watching it and went, "Oh yeah, I got to do this show." So the most I could get really at first were auditions for small parts, and I thought, that's okay. I don't care what part it is. I want to get on the show. And then you do the best you can anyway, right? No matter what the part is. And then if they like you, they will maybe give you another shot, right? So the first one was a fairly small part of a policeman up in the hills in a witchcraft story. And having completed that one, later when this bleeping detective came along, Detective Manners, they thought I could have a shot at that. Well, a much bigger part, see? So my strategy paid off basically. And to prepare for that, well, there was almost no preparation because they said, don't, I thought I was going to be swearing and they would just bleep me out like usual. No, they said, you say bleep and blankety bleep blank and all that. And I went, oh, okay, well, that's pretty interesting. So I basically just tried to play it straight up, as if this guy was just a cranky cop who couldn't believe all this shit that was going on around him and was swearing all the time. And except I said blank as the swear word. I just played it straight up, and well, apparently it worked.
Did you enjoy doing Jose Chung? I mean, that's like the original funny episode, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Oh yeah, wacky.
the beginning of the funny episodes. How much fun was that to work on that episode and to play that character?
Oh, it was great fun, and at times difficult to have a straight face. And they're coming out of what's supposed to be a serious conversation about of this young girl who is apparently probed and possibly raped. And and I come out saying, well, you really blanked up this case, didn't you? I mean, it's laughable, and yet I had to be straight. So the big challenge was not to crack up. And I'll tell you what, those scenes around the dead alien body, yeah, that's a bleeping dead alien body if I ever bleeping saw one. Those scenes that night, uh, Alan Zinnick was the name of the guy with the flashlight and climbing up the power poles. He is such a good comic actor. Does mostly theater. I'd seen him before, and it was really hard not to crack up the stuff he was doing.
The goofy guy
Yes.
who was like obsessed with the aliens and wanted to be abducted. That guy? You're talking about that guy?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, him. He had glasses on. He had always had a flashlight, and he was threatened by everybody. I think Jesse Ventura came into his room and said, "Shut up about this, or you're a dead man." And then Scully said to him, "You say anything about this, you're a dead man."
yeah.
And he was the guy always being told, being threatened.
Yeah,
He was
right.
going to die if he talked about it. But he finally comes bursting in the room with the recorder to record the autopsy. And then during the autopsy, it's shown that it's a zipper and a real human, which of course, when he sees it's a real human that's being cut into, he throws up. Right? He can't take it. That's a real person they're cutting into. So this guy was really good, and I always laughed at any scene I was in with him. And, well, just the whole thing. It's just so crazy, It's like, I spent a lot of time on the set laughing off camera and trying not to on. Right?
I understand Jillian was a big laugh person. Did she have that with
Oh yeah, she's
she went
great.
nuts. I heard that a lot, that she would just like lose it and then couldn't stop.
Yeah, that's right. She has a great sense of humor, and she likes a good laugh. No question about that. And so does David Duchovny.
Yeah.
So you were talking about working on the set and filming was fun for you. Do you have a favorite memory from working on the X-Files?
Well, there's so many of them, I mean, to sort to sort one in particular is kind of difficult, as you might appreciate. But I really enjoyed the in the Stephen King script. It was called Chinga, and
Oh, yeah.
we had to pretend to eat this monstrous lobster, and you know, just to try and get things going, I, before the camera was even rolling, I reached over and grabbed this big thing and just ripped one of the claws off, and that freaked that freaked Jillian out so much, you know, that the rest of the scene was kind of crazy, and so I'll never forget that, you know.
Which was your favorite episode to work on, if you had one? I mean, I know.
Well, you know, yeah, I'm going to say unrequited, because I was playing one of these paranormal anti-government military, a little off-center guys who was an ex-Vietnam vet and was really pissed at the way he was treated. Now, that presented real challenges for me. So, I mean, I can't put myself really in a guy having been in a war and having been tromped on like that. So I had to dig to come up with a character there. And because because of the way it turned out, I'd say that was, just for me, looking at it as the standpoint of an actor, that was my favorite. I mean, the other ones all had some element of kind of crazy offbeat humor to them. This one had no humor. I couldn't rely on anything like that for this guy.
Yeah.
He was the mentor for this invisible guy that was killing all the generals, right?
Yeah.
And quite happy he was doing that.
Well, yeah.
You know? So that was interesting for me, you know, to think that way, to try and get inside that guy's head. What would he be thinking? What's he like? Right?
You mentioned previously to us that you didn't care how small the role was, you just wanted to be on the X-Files.
Yep.
So having been on many times, what was it like to be part of the whole X-Files phenomenon in the 90s, and, you know, with the growing popularity, and then, you know, the movies coming out and everything? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the show got very, very popular, as you know, and was I think at some point in the mid 90s #1, right? And that one I mentioned, Chinga, by Stephen King, that was shown during the Olympics, and it was the Winter Olympics. That was the only show that got a higher rating than the Olympics for that day. Was the Stephen King X-Files episode. So that just, you know, that's not braggadocio. That's just me saying how popular this thing was by then. And yes, I sort of got highly recognizable, and whenever I went to audition for something, they right away knew who I was, and I think it blew open some doors. I got a big role in a feature film called The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin, and spent a month working on that show, and that was shortly after I did The Bleeping Detective. So you see, it made a big difference. They knew who I was, right? They saw something that I had done. So
Interesting.
yeah, it was really, really fun to work on, and very successful from my point of view, unquestionably.
What do you think it is that still makes it so popular and relatable in this day and age?
The question, I touch on that because even Frank, you know, he was still amazed at how much of that has followed him around, and how everybody feels what you just said about it. It was an event kind of on television that was unlike most others. I mean, you can name a few that reached that, but not very many, right? And so here we're having this. We had a cocktail party after the first day of the X Fest, and it was hosted by Frank, and he addressed that very point and said, to this day, he's really amazed and feels so much appreciation and affection and love for those days and doing that show. And I've got to say I do too. And after the Bleeping Man, the next 2 seasons, they offered me a role. You know, they gave me the Vietnam guy, and then they gave me the police chief uh, in the Stephen King Chinga. So, you know, even though I only came on one episode each season, it was always a good, interesting character, and I felt part of the team. And that's what you felt when you were on the set shooting X-Files. The
Right.
crew were fantastic. Yeah, everybody that worked on that show seemed to really be proud of what they were doing and wanted to do it the best possible way, even in those endless nights up in Mount Seymour with the rain pounding down, and you're just thinking, God, I want to get out of here pretty soon. Still, you would find that you'd look around and you see everybody else like really digging in. You'd say, oh, you know, come on, you got to give your best shot here. Let's hang in here, do your best work right now. And I felt like that all the time. And that's pretty rare.
And that is, if you could say something directly to the fans of the X-Files from the past 25, 27 years, what would you like to say?
I would like to say that I always thought the fans of X-Files were special. And I'm not just saying that because you said, oh, they're listening now and you're talking to them. I always believed that. And you know what? In Chicago, when I met a bunch of them, that was not only confirmed, but exceeded. And to this day, I'm in touch with several of those people I met that weekend, and I consider most of them to be friends. I made new friends on X-Files, connected to X-Files, through X-Files. And as far as I'm concerned, you can't say much better than that if you've made a bunch of friends. And that's how I feel.